All right. Uh, Folks are still trickling in, but let's get this party started. You have joined the Masterclass with myself, Andy Zielinski, as well as Talon Andy. We are going to be going over all things Route Builder. Super excited to kind of share with you the new feature that we kicked off. And tonight you have myself, as I mentioned, Andy Zielinski here, product marketing for Offroad. Fun little kind of story. In fact, my family and I, family of five, spent 4 months traveling the southwest of the states in a van, eventually relocating up to North Idaho, where I primarily am running trails out of my 95 Land Cruiser, affectionately named Larry. He's got a lot of miles under his belt, but he is a fun time. And Talon, why don't you give the crew a little intro as to who you are?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I am basically a full-time content creator, but I have my hands in a little bit of everything. A majority of my time is spent on the road in different vehicles, which I'm going to actually show you guys some of the stuff in onX where you can kind of showcase your garage. So most people know me probably for my 21 Tacoma, which is all hooked up for overlanding. And then I also have two different Sprinter vans, which I'm currently traveling right now. So I'm based out of Denver, Colorado. I'm currently on a road trip. I have been for the past week. So I'm currently in Montrose, Colorado, and I'm going to be making my way down through Arizona kind of in the next couple of days and a couple of weeks. So we'll talk more about that in a second.
Right on. And as you are walking us all through how you go about planning your adventures, I'm going to be taking a lot of notes as well myself. So I'm stoked to be learning from you.
I'm going to be giving away the secrets here. I don't share this stuff often, but I'm excited that everyone's been joining and it's going to be cool to see.
Yeah, right on. So for tonight, as mentioned, we're going to go through what it looks like to plan your weekend or your adventure with Talon. Q&A, again, friendly reminder, drop those questions into the chat. We've got people here who will love to talk through any questions you might have, and then we have some giveaways at the end. Now, before we go, I just want to give kind of, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Cool. So we, as mentioned, we dropped the new feature Route Builder just last week, and there's been a ton of excitement just for the gang here who's joining us. A few things that really makes this specific product really, really powerful is that this is a product that was built in-house. This is not an off-the-shelf solution, which means that the team at onX is able to build and iterate on this feature extremely quickly, as well as kind of build a routing graph that is that really kind of maximizes speed and efficiency for your planning. So as you're thinking through kind of like what it means to plan a trip, and you've gone through the cumbersome kind of flow of dropping multiple points, drawing lines, trying to get it all to connect. We have now provided that solution. You can find that here in your toolbar on your web map. Talon will walk through this with you guys, but I would encourage you to pull up your web map either on desktop. This is also available on your mobile device. So if you have an Android or iPhone, grab that, open up the app. You need the latest version. So make sure that you get the latest version updated. And as Talon kind of walks you through, I would just encourage you to either take notes or follow along using the Route Builder tool right here. So with no further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to pass it over to who you all are here to see and hear from. So Talon, over to you.
All right, let's do this. I'm gonna share my screen and we should be good. I think you can see everything there. Maybe not. How about now? We're looking good?
Looking good.
Okay, cool. So, like I mentioned, I'm currently in Western Colorado and I'm going to be traveling down into Arizona for an event which is happening next weekend. So, I'm going to just kind of talk my way through this, which is basically just giving you all of the insight of how I use onX as a whole, how I use all of the different tools in here. And there's going to be a lot. So, like you mentioned, drop some questions in the comments for whatever you may want to see. So, currently up in the corner of Colorado here, I'm a little bit north of Telluride, and I'm going to be coming down this way, kind of southwest into Arizona. And I know one of my first stops is going to be around the Phoenix area. So this is going to be dependent on what vehicle you're traveling in. Let me see if I can minimize that. Okay. So one of the coolest features that I like is the My Garage feature in onX. So over on the left-hand side here, if I open up My Garage, you can see 3 of my different vehicles here, which I mentioned in the beginning. And when you are creating your garage and kind of building out the vehicles that you have, maybe you just have one vehicle, maybe you have a Jeep or dedicated rock crawler, you can actually set parameters which allow you to filter the maps on onX based off of which vehicle that you're in. So right now I'm currently traveling in my Storyteller, which is right here. It's a Sprinter van. So when I open that up, you can kind of see the parameters that I have set here. It's a 4x4 vehicle, and I filtered it by the full width roads, and it is a high clearance 4x4. This thing has some pretty good ground clearance to it. So now that I have that selected, that kind of takes all of the work out of actually filtering by myself. So right now, everything is going to be filtered by the full width roads, high clearance 4x4s. You can add snowmobiles and dirt bikes to this as well. Actually did not select that. So if you do not have your garage built out already, you can actually just go into the filter and do this yourself. I know in this vehicle, I'm going to be set with 4x4 trails. You can see some of the data kind of removing itself there. I'm mainly going to be on full width roads, so I'm going to have that selected as well. And now I'm ready to kind of zoom around on the map and actually plan out my route. So because one of my main destinations, I'm going to have to swing through the Phoenix area. Since I know I'm going there, of course, I can use the Discover feature, which is populated here on the left-hand side. I can kind of scroll through and just kind of get a highlight of where these trails are at, their technical rating, how long I could plan on being on the trails. And this really comes in handy for someone like me who travels to new areas all the time. I haven't spent much time on trails in this area that I'm going to be looking at here. So this is a good resource to kind of start your travels. But for now, I'm actually going to get out of that. And I like doing all this stuff manually because I kind of know the route that I'm going to be coming in on. So since I'm coming from the northeast, traveling southwest, I'm going to be coming right through this area here where we have a nice little pocket of trails. So I've actually already went ahead and set a waypoint for this. Now, one thing that I like to do, especially when traveling in my Sprinter van, is to kind of break up my day of traveling on the highway by doing sort of a point-to-point loop off of a highway or mainly from one town to another. So earlier I was kind of looking at the trails in this area and I noticed that there's a pretty good connection of trails here between Globe, Arizona and Apache Junction. So if we zoom in here, I'm going to be coming off of this highway at some point next week. So I can use this waypoint to kind of mark where I'm going to be traveling. Now with Route Builder, it really helps to do this sort of pre-planning before you build the route. That way, you know, you can actually access the trails that you're trying to access based off of all the parameters. So right at the start of this trail here, if I click on it, obviously it's going to give us information. That is Richmond Basin. It's just a quick little loop there, but I want to travel up over the mountain range here. So this right here looks like it is Globe Young Highway, and then that connects all the way up through Roosevelt Reservoir. And then this turns into Apache Trail eventually, which brings me back down to this side. So since these trails are kind of all separate, they all have their own names and everything, I'm going to start by dropping waypoints of kind of where they connect and disconnect. So I'm going to grab a waypoint right here. I'm just going to keep the labels really simple right now. I'm just going to call this checkpoint 1. going to drag this over to where the trails change a little bit. And I mentioned this in a video that I did on Route Builder already. I'm actually, if I had more time, I would kind of go through and really like zoom in and check out the 3D maps, but you can really pick different things that you want to hit. So right up here is this big old reservoir. So might be a cool spot to stop. I'll drop another waypoint. We'll do check 2 here. I'm going to color code this whole thing yellow. Oh, I actually did not drop that at the right place. So let's move that up here. Save that. Okay. So that's going to put me on basically my downhill travel, or what I'm assuming is going to be downhill travel, all the way over here into Apache Junction area. So this trail right here is all connected. Difficulty rating 1 out of 5 over here. So I know my van is definitely capable of that. We're not hitting any featured trails right now, but I will show you guys that in a second. So since this trail connects all the way down, I'll simply drop one more waypoint. I'm going to put that right down here in Apache Junction, actually, because I'm going to be heading over into Mesa, Arizona. We'll just do check 3 and we'll save that for now. So now I know, based off of the data that I just grabbed from those trails, that it's capable for my vehicle to actually go through this whole area. And then instead of just kind of wrapping down like a major highway, I can have some fun and cut across through the mountains. So you can string together pretty large routes while using this tool, but I'm just going to show you quick what a small route looks like before we dive into some of the featured trails and where I'm actually going to be heading. So right up here, of course, we're going to click on build route. I'm going to call this Globe to Apache. Let's build the route in red. And now we have 2 different functions here. We have the snap to function, which is what I find myself using more often than not. And then you have the point draw tool, which is going to basically kind of act like the line tool does, if you guys are familiar with that already. So a point draw would be like starting down here, I'm in Globe, I will click to drop a point, and then I'm heading all the way over here. So that's just drawing a straight line, obviously. Not going to be doing that. So we're going to clear that, clear the route. Now we're going to use the snap to, and this is kind of where the magic happens. So if I'm starting in Globe, I'll just drop a point kind of near the town. And that is the start of my route. Now, here's my first waypoint, and I'm going to be heading up this trail. As I move my cursor, you guys can probably see it kind of creating the route in real time. And this is going to snap to basically all of the trail data that is available on onX. So if I just go straight across here, obviously it's going to take me kind of the path of least resistance there. I don't want to necessarily go south here. I want to go up to those points and check out this reservoir. So you can see it's building the route, can actually bypass that first waypoint that I set. And now I will click again to drop a point right at that reservoir. So now on the left-hand side, it's calculating the distance. Of course, you can see the kind of the topography on the map, but then the elevation changes as well. So I'm actually kind of wrong with what I was saying here. I'm starting at a higher point and heading down to this reservoir. And then I'm assuming if I continue this route, kind of following this trail, we're probably going to gain elevation by the end of this when we end up in Apache Junction. So all the way to my last point here, I'm going to click again to drop that route. And there we have the total distance. That's way further than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie. So we're looking at roughly 75 miles, 7,259 feet of elevation gain, and almost 9,000 in loss. So that is a very quick and easy way to build the route. When you're done doing this, you can just click save. You also have edit options if you want to go back in and maybe add some other stops along your way. You can undo points, you can clear points. So it's pretty intuitive, pretty straightforward. But now that I'm done with this route, I'm going to come down here and click save. And now, ooh, free beanie. Now I can see my route, and this is also available over here in my content tab. So if I open up my routes Here I have some of the Idaho ones that I made in a recent video. I was traveling from Idaho and I made a route when I was going through Montana. So now I have, of course, Globe to Apache. Click on that and it will give me all of my information there. Now, if I wanted to expand this even further, I mean, this is really giving you guys like the details of what I'm actually going to do. I probably will check out this route maybe midweek coming up here. But now I'm going to be going from Phoenix and Mesa area down here to an event called Weird Wild West. It's in Bisbee, Arizona, kind of right on the border of Mexico. So if I really wanted to just like see what the route would look like, I could go in and edit this route. Let's actually do it that way. So I'm going to click on the route that I created. Zoom in here a little bit more. Globe to Apache. Now let's zoom out a little bit so I can see all the way down to where I'm traveling to. Let's edit this. And now let's add a point just all the way down here. I'm assuming this is going to take me mostly highway, but yeah, in the rough area there. So now we can see kind of where I'm heading. Oh, it did not drop a point. One sec. So I can see that I'm coming down here through Tucson, actually. So like I mentioned earlier on, I like doing these sort of offshoot routes. So let's actually set a point here in Tucson, because if I look a little northwest of here, you'll notice this featured trail right here. Looks like it is the North Waterman Mountain Trail. Now, before I actually check out this trail and pin it to this route, I'm going to save it real quick, just so I can actually check out the data of this trail, make sure that my vehicle is capable of actually traveling on this. So most trails highlighted in blue are, of course, featured trails here on onX. So now we can get all the data. This is a 53-mile kind of point-to-point loop, and it's just a loop off of Highway 10. Technical rating of 4, accessible by most vehicles here. Now we can actually check out a description and photos. I use these features a lot when I'm checking out all of these trails because I really want to see what other people have experienced on a trail like this. So if you read through some of the information here, it looks like our friend suggested that it could be done in a lifted Prius, which is slight hyperbole, but they say it's quite easy. I know my vehicle, my Sprinter van Storyteller, is capable of doing most trails that are rated a 4 out of 10. I believe I could maybe get away with like a 6, depending on the actual width of the trail and if there are any trees in the area. But since we're down here, tree coverage, not really going to be a big deal. Can actually check out all of these photos as well. Looking at some cactuses, looks like some old graveyards. So pretty cool stuff there. Since I know my van is capable of that, and also in the description here, I did see that most people run it clockwise. So it can be done in either direction, but it's described as being driven clockwise. So if I decided I wanted to check this out, what I can do now is go back into the route. Come on, route. Sorry, my internet's a little bit slow right now. Okay, now we're going to go into edit. And I don't even think I'll have to drop waypoints on this because obviously I just did my kind of pre-plan inspection here. Now I'm going to drop a point up here at the start of this trail. Drop one out here kind of halfway on the loop. And then one more connecting me. Let's just go a little bit past Tucson this time because I know I'm going to be heading south. Now I can save that. Of course, I would probably want to rename this since the trip is getting longer and longer as I keep planning here. Oh, I actually made a mistake here. All right, I'm going to show you guys how to fix a mistake. So when I drop this waypoint out here on the loop, you will notice that it just routed me back the direction that I came in. So let's click on this again. We'll edit it. And now let's clear this. Oh, no, keep route. And my internet is struggling here. Let's just do it like this. I'm going to drop this point again and zoom in a little tighter here. Let's drop that point. Now I can continue on. And then connect back up with Highway 10. Oh, sorry, my internet is really struggling right now. Generally, I'm using onX on my phone for the most part, but I do enjoy using Route Builder on a desktop when you have a good connection because it's just a little bit easier to see all the data. So there we go. I can save that. And now I can have a look at the route. I can, of course, access it in my content tab, and I can share this information with friends rather than just sending them a bunch of waypoints. I can actually show them exactly how this route is going to go. So I can kind of continue doing the same thing. Here's another little offshoot, which I may check out. And then eventually I'll be on the highway all the way down to my destination. And that's how I plan my routes. So there's a good chance that I'm actually going to check out a lot of these routes that I just built, and I'm going to be creating some videos on that whole experience. So if you guys follow me on any of my social media, there's a good chance that you will see me taking my storyteller on this route that we just built here sometime pretty soon in the near future. Now, let me see if we can jump into the Q&As, I guess.
Yeah, Talon, I was going to ask one thing that would be great is to get your perspective on as the professional adventurer. So if you've got this route built up and let's say you might find yourself in an area where self-service is limited, how would you best advise the crew to pull up offline maps and kind of access their information that way?
Yeah, that's a good point too. So you can actually download it. Like I said, I mainly use this on my phone, but let's just assume that here, let's go down to this little offshoot here. I did not add this to my route, but it looks like this is something that's pretty cool that I want to check out. There's a good chance that I will be out of cell reception. The more remote you get, especially closer to Mexico, you tend to generally lose a lot of info like that. So let's go over here on the left-hand side into offline maps. Let's do a new offline map. And I'm going to call this Wakefield Canyon, which is the name of the trail, it looks like. So now this is kind of where you can pick and choose what you want to do. So on the medium resolution, which is generally what I'm downloading maps at, just because it gives me just enough information but covers a pretty good area, I can download it at this medium resolution and get everything that you see in this 12.2 by 9.5 mile box right here. If I really wanted a ton of data, wait till this updates here. Okay, there we go. It's a little different on the phone, actually. I've never downloaded a map while I'm on my computer, but I can do high resolution in this area here, which is 11.3 by 8.8. And then it looks like on desktop here, both the medium and the low stay about the same for the area. So since medium's a little bit better, I can do that. And I'll just say Highway 10 offshoot. I'll save that. And if my internet connection is good, that will be saved. Now that way, once I turn off the highway here, I can actually access all of the data that's found in here when I don't have reception. So let's actually check out this trail, Wakefield Canyon, 4 out of 10. Total time, 5 hours and 30 minutes. That sounds pretty aggressive, but looks like something that is also passable in my vehicle. So a little bit of some rocks and drops there. Maybe pretty cool to check out. So that's generally how you can use online maps. But again, I'm mainly using these on my cell phone.
Awesome. And then talk us through real quick, because you kind of briefly touched on this, but I think the crew would really be interested on just like, how do you organize your folders? So if you've got a big trip coming up, I would assume folders are probably a key component to kind of making the trip successful.
Yeah, so right now I'm just using the regular folders that are already created when you have onX. I should really break this stuff up into folders of my own. And the way I should probably do it, I mean, I'm using onX literally almost every single day. It's kind of therapeutic to like lay in bed at night and like plan out where I'm going to be driving in the morning, get to that destination and do it all over again. So I could create a folder and I would probably do it state by state. I'm one who tends to color coordinate my maps. So I'll generally start my trails with a red 4x4 icon. And then I will put a campsite with a little tent icon, typically in black. So there's a lot of ways to do that. I think if I were to do it, I would probably do it with, let me see if I can show you an example here. What track is this? Let's see. So that's just a track. What was this? This was a video I did, I believe, with onX. This was checking out ghost towns. So over here, if I click on this waypoint that I've set here, this is St. Elmo ghost town. I've actually filmed a whole video on this. So while I was kind of searching around for a campsite, I was really using 3D maps here. I don't even want to turn them on because my internet connection is not great right now. But you can really get a good idea of how these mountains here are looking with the 3D function. You can really see the tight topography here. So we're going to know that that's really steep. We kind of have a ridge that's building up, and you can see that I marked this trail with a Yeti icon. I was using the Yeti icon or a Bigfoot Sasquatch icon for ghost towns. And then I recorded my track from the town of St. Elmo up the trails that I showed in that video. You'll notice here, we were kind of looking for a camp spot over on this ridge. We got over there and it ended up being a little bit windblown. And as you can see, it is owned by someone. It is not, it's not public land. So another benefit of using Elite membership too is having all the private and public land data. So you can see up here where we ended up near this lake. If I click on somewhere near there, this is national forest land. Generally, depending on the state, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but for the most part, you can camp on national forest land as long as you treat it responsibly. So that's basically how I label all of my icons. I really should create folders. I'm glad you brought that up because I'm kind of lacking in the department. You can see under my content tab here, I have 127 different pieces of content. So that's lines that I recorded, the routes or tracks, I should say, tracks that I recorded, routes, ton of waypoints, and it's it's like one of my prized possessions, I would say. I have a lot of like secret camp spots that I don't like sharing because I don't want them to get destroyed by people who don't like pack out their garbage and things like that. So I have a lot of good data in all of this content right here that hopefully you guys can go out and create yourself sometime in the future.
That's awesome. And some homework for you to start organizing some of your
Yeah.
content into folders. So interesting, because I love the personalization of the waypoints. Do you want to show us just kind of like the high level how to customize a waypoint and kind of some best practices in terms of thinking about what a waypoint could represent when you're kind of building an adventure and then accessing that when in the field?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to drop a random waypoint. Let's just do this quick here. I'm going to assume this looks like national forest land. Let's just say we go up to this mountain peak right over here. Let's just drop it at the end of this trail here. So I'm going to create a waypoint. And let's say I found a really cool camp spot right here in whatever national forest this is. So Over on the right-hand side, if it is a camp spot, I can select it as camp. If it is the start of a trail, that's generally when I'm using the 4x4 icon. I have a lot of, actually, these are my recently used. These are my most used icons out of all of these. Whenever I come to a hot spring, generally I'll mark that on my map too, and I'll actually mark these in different colors. So hot spring, I of course typically would put a blue icon, depending on if it's a water crossing. Actually, I'll use the dark blue. If it is a hot spring, I will use the lighter blue. You can put notes in here and add photos as well. So whenever I'm actually doing a camp spot and dropping a waypoint on there, I actually like to take a photo, just a random cell phone photo of kind of like the views. That way you can kind of tell or maybe remember what that campsite looked like. But when you're dropping a waypoint and uploading a photo at the same time, then you definitely know. And that's another thing that I do too in my content. I try to post at least 2 to 3 photos for every campsite that I get. Hot springs as well, water crossings are all the same too. And if we actually open up the more here, there are a ton of icons. So you could really go crazy with this. If you find a spot to pick up firewood, you can mark that. Caves, climbing, fishing, grocery stores, mud pits. I mean, the possibilities here are pretty much endless. A view icon, washouts in the road. That stuff is important for when you're traveling trails that you've been on before. So there is a lot of different functionality here. And I feel like you guys are also adding more icons all the time. So I think my favorite icon is probably the Sasquatch one. That's what I would
Yeah, I'm
say.
not gonna lie, that's a good one. Probably one that you use the most as well. Also, as we kind of are, I'm going to interrupt the conversation real quickly for everyone. Just friendly reminder, we do have a whole team who is dedicated to answering your questions. Just hit that Q&A button down at the bottom. I see the chat is blowing up, but all the questions are getting answered in the Q&A. So would love that. Talon,
Yeah.
real quick, you mentioned something about one of your previous trips with ghost towns and terrain. Do you ever utilize the 3D map? And if so, what kind of detail are you looking for from the 3D view?
Yeah, let's go out on a limb here and see if the 3D will work for me. Let's actually go back up to, it's easier if I just go into my content, go to the track that I created. I'm going to go back to that same area when I was in St. Elmo Ghost Town. So looking at the topography here, if you guys are familiar with how to kind of read topography on maps, it's pretty overwhelming in this area. This is super mountainous. This is in the Rocky Mountains. So let's see if this will work. If I go into a satellite view with the 3D map, it's actually working okay. So here, this is kind of what I was looking at on my phone. And you can kind of scroll around here. You can actually change the orientation if my computer wants to cooperate with me. Zoom in a little bit more here. So here you can see the route and you can really tell how high we were actually climbing. So if I click on this route, it'll actually tell me what the elevation gain and everything was. So I don't use this quite that often unless I'm in an area that is very mountainous or is filled with a lot of canyons. When I'm searching for things and I'm just kind of like out on a whim, this feature really helps because a lot of times when you're looking at topography, I find mainly in the desert, you can really come up onto like cliff faces generally. If I wanted to say like, take this trail and then maybe find something up here at this peak, now I can actually look in and see how much effort it's going to take to go from one point on the map all the way up to the top of this ridge here. So let me see if I can actually spin this around. It's not liking it on my computer right now, but yeah, that's generally how I use 3D maps, just to get like an actual physical representation of the topography in the area.
Love it, man. Cool. I know we had a few questions come up several times just about My Garage, and I think it's a fun tool. For the folks here, My Garage is currently only available on web. They are working on delivering that to a mobile platform. But again, My Garage, Town, why you anyone who is late to this one, give them just kind of the high level of the My Garage and how you use this piece.
Yeah, so over here in My Garage, this is where you put the parameters for your vehicle. That way, instead of manually filtering by using the filter option every time, if you're going out in a specific vehicle, like let's say I'm taking out my Tacoma, so actually click on that so you guys can see. This is the information that I already put in. I'm taking this truck on dirt, in forest, gravel, rock, sand, snow. I'm driving this truck basically everywhere. It is a 4x4 vehicle. High clearance 4x4 trails is mainly where I'm going to be driving this thing. So if I go back into My Garage and actually click on the keys, that will filter the map based off of the high clearance 4x4 trails. And it's actually showing you here. So maybe you have a stock Tacoma and you had it based off of full width roads. If you upgrade it, now you can bump up your parameters to something like the 4x4 trails. So that just basically takes out all of the data and only gives me what I want to see. So now it just makes the experience a little bit better. I know looking at onX can be fairly overwhelming for someone who's very new at seeing this, because there's just so much data, like 500,000 plus trails all throughout the United States. So the filter is your friend. It allows you to really get to the data that you're looking for a lot faster than just looking at all of the data that they could possibly provide.
Love it. And we've had a few questions just around visibility to private and public land data. So for anyone who is not aware, and then Talon, maybe give it just a quick voiceover on how important it is for you to see private land. Just so you guys know, the private land data is an elite membership feature. So you would need to have an elite membership. As you can see on his toolbar, just underneath My Garage, you'll see elite benefits. That's also one more thing just to plug. We are rolling out a new program if you have an elite membership, where you have early and exclusive access to our elite partners. So stay tuned for that. We also have a whole nother masterclass just talking through each partner's kind of benefits, the products that they're creating, and the offers that you get as an elite member. But one of the elite benefits that you have in app is that private land data. So Talon, how important is it to you to have that information at your fingertips?
That is super important to me, based off of where I do most of my adventuring, generally Colorado and like everywhere out west. So using the same trail as an example, you'll notice that it should start on national forest land. So like down here, if I just simply click, you can actually get the information about the land that you're selecting. So this is national forest land, and this trail is actually open to the public, but you will notice that when I zoom in a little bit further, it's passing through land that is owned by specific people. And it can be very deceptive. Like when you're out there in the moment, this campsite that we tried to get to as a perfect example, we're like way up here in this whole like mining area. There's absolutely nothing. There are no trees around. It's just like big, vast openness. So you would assume it might be BLM land or maybe national forest, but if we actually click on like the area right up here where we did the turnaround, you'll see here that this is private land. So could you get away with camping on it? In this situation, you might be able to, but I don't like that idea of camping in spots that you shouldn't be. So you can tell we came up this trail, kind of found a high peak here. I checked onX and realized that it was indeed private land. So we continued on, and you can see it kind of passes through national forest land here and there, back through private land. But then once we got higher in elevation, it really opened up into all of this national forest land, which in this area is generally really good for camping. Even right off of like the very top of this mountain here, like we're really high in elevation here, and you'll notice that this is private land owned by someone. So there's 10 acres there. You can also actually get information. It's all public record, but you can actually see who owns land in some cases. So it's a really cool feature for Elite. And I mean, that's why I would definitely choose to run Elite more than anything else, because it's surprising what land is owned by state or the government and then also owned privately.
Love it. Any last thoughts before we kind of kick over to the giveaway section?
I don't have anything. I don't know. Should we do Q&A together, or is that just stuff that?
Yeah, we got a crew that is answering a bunch of questions. If there's any burning questions, you guys drop a couple in the chat. This is where we'll open it up. We'll see if there's any that we can take on. Otherwise, it looks like we have our Q&A team fully booked. But also, if there's no other, there'll always be someone from the CX team who can answer a question at a later time as well.
Cool.
Okay, so one question we're getting from, just in terms of expanding beyond the US, that is in the works, but more to come there. Canada will be first. We have some information coming your way about that. You will need an Elite membership, but stay tuned. And then a fast follow for Mexico. So before we hop off, I'm going to steal the screen one more time and end with one last slide, and that is we are wrong one. Sorry, guys. Managing multiple screens, you know how that can be.
It's tough.
Okay. The giveaway time. So I'm going to drop here in the chat the giveaway. No purchase is necessary, but an account is required. So make sure in a few moments, I'm going to drop that link into the chat. I got to get off the screen share to be able to do so. But as soon as I do that, click through. Entries close at midnight tonight. As mentioned earlier, that this is being recorded. You can find all of our how-tos, all of our master classes back on YouTube. Just search onX Offroad, and then in the search menu, search what you want to look for, and all that will be available for you guys. And in just a moment, let me drop you guys that link. And as I do so, Talon, just killing airspace, any last thoughts from your side? Put you on
No,
the spot. Sorry, buddy.
I'm thinking about this trip now. I was waiting to plan everything that I just kind of did there on stream to I've been waiting to plan that. So now I am gonna probably go over it with a fine-tooth comb once we get off of here and really decide where I'm gonna go, because got a lot of videos to make. I just upgraded the van like crazy, so I'm still working on it.
What are you most excited about?
About the van, or
It all, the van, the adventures.
oh man, I mean, this is kind of the start of like expo season, is what I like to call it. So there's a ton of expos going on. It's going to be my first event down in Bisbee, Arizona.
Cool.
And Flagstaff Expo after that, Pacific Northwest, Mountain West. There's a lot of overland content and expos going on. So I'm excited to hang out with everyone.
Nice. Well, friendly plug, if anyone is going to be in the Flagstaff area, onX will be there. Talon, I'll see you there. Would love to link up with as many of you as possible. I'm sure there's going to be some trail rides and whatnot. But yeah, thank you all for joining. Again, this will be available on YouTube tomorrow. Otherwise, have fun out there. Keep adventuring. Go farther. Talk to you guys later. See ya. Thanks, Talon.
Yep. Thanks for having me.